Welcome to Love You Bro podcast. I am your host, Jude Devella. This is my baby brother, Jamie.
What it do?
What's up, man? Man, a lot of good stuff to catch up on, bro. A lot of good stuff to catch up on, man. We're going to get into a little bit of the college football world, man. Notre Dame, Ohio State. We got some stuff to talk about there.
Yep.
We're going to talk, obviously, about NFL playoffs, what went on over the weekend. We're going to get in and we're going to dive into our Chiefs, who will be kicking it off on Saturday with the Texans. They looked good on Saturday, didn't they, Texans?
They looked really good. Their defense looked awesome.
They looked fast.
Yeah, they looked really fast. And the impressive part to me was, the Chargers have one of the best offensive lines in football, and the Texans absolutely got after Herbert.
For sure.
And Herbert did a lot of dipshit Herbert stuff, but it wasn't because he had time in the pocket. He never had a clean pocket.
Right.
And he's not a guy that does well if he can't get his feet settled. And those dudes, they were,
Texans
Danielle
look good.
Hunter and then
Texans look good. Man. Will Anderson, man.
yeah.
Boy, Will Anderson Jr. from Alabama.
They absolutely
Shout out to him.
Yeah, they absolutely got after him. So
shout out
it's going to be a big challenge, man. But
for
looking
sure,
forward to it.
For sure. We'll dive into that. Just want to talk to all of our people that are tuned in to Love You Bro. Please follow us, man, on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on X. Please go on our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. That's what kind of builds up our followers and stuff. And we appreciate everybody that's been following our reels, following our shows.
Absolutely.
Thank you to our amazing guys at KC Podcast Company that do their work.
Crush it.
Let us do it. Thank you to Lula Southern Cookhouse for this amazing spot.
Being our home, yeah.
And yeah, man. So we got some really cool guests coming up. We're going to dive into our show today. Just on the way here, confirmed on the phone. Next week, man, we're going to bring on Kansas City great, K-State great, NFL great, who I think is a future Hall of Famer, Darren Sproles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
D. Sproles was a real one.
Yeah, Sproles will be on our show next Monday night. So, which will drop on the following Thursday. So you guys know we shoot at Lula's on Monday nights, and our episodes drop on Thursday on Apple, Spotify, and our YouTube channel. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Can't
man.
wait to get these Sproles on.
Yeah, thank you guys for subscribing. But let's dive into our show tonight, man. Let's dive into we're gonna get to the Chiefs and talk a little bit about that, and maybe we'll dive into that now because a guest that we're going to bring on tonight is a good friend of mine who I met through Steve Brittingham, another guy that we do some work with, Coach Steve Martin, who is the head coach at Wichita Northwest High School. He's got, bro, he to me, and I know you haven't seen a lot of the programs down there in Wichita. His program to me reminds me a lot of a Rockers program, the discipline, the way his kids play. But we want to talk to Coach Martin a little bit about just all the transformation and stuff we're seeing of kids coming out of high school, all the NIL, all the money floating around. You and I have talked about, and I've gone and shown you some clips, and we've shown them back and forth. And I think even Tom Buchanan, our friend, who's the Wolf of Wall Street, Wolf of Waldo, who's been on our show, was pointing out there was a kid that was going to go, and it was in the SEC, and I can't remember. Was it Florida? Yeah. Was it Florida? And so he posted. The school posted on what he wanted, what his demands were, NIL wise, before even going there. And it's not just about the money now. Now these kids are getting smarter, younger. This guy talked about he wanted a driver, not just a driver. He wants a driver in an Escalade 24/7, to and from classes, to and from when he goes, to be part of what the school picks up. Smart on his part, so he never has to face some of the stuff that the NFL guys have faced. But the demands these kids are putting up, the dollar amounts they're putting up, it's getting kind of crazy, bro. They got to put some type of lid on it, man.
Yeah. And with that being said, it is really, really smart. And it's, it's when it comes to the driving aspect and who knows what that's for, but you have that kid right now at LSU who's going to be a first round pick, and he is wanted. I haven't seen the latest, but he is wanted for essentially vehicular homicide.
Wow.
And once again, it's, you don't know. It'll be fun to ask coach or good to ask coach, I say, about what this all encompasses. I know that you look for, stability within a program and kind of extension who you are, but now you can kind of transfer and do your thing, which I would never hold a kid back because they got shafted for such a long time when coaches could leave and they would still get punished for it.
Right.
But what that encompasses, and it's like there's these kids out there, and the same kid from LSU. It was early this year, and he had a 15-yard penalty for doing that like double pump shotgun action, like he was. And then he would did it on the sideline showing his teammates what he did. And it's just one of those things like, it's, you know, it's almost like when can you start in high school? It's implementing these programs to be like, you can do this and you can't do this.
Right.
You know, obviously this kid's life's affected and will be affected majorly. I mean, you're looking at a Henry, the Ruggs kid from Alabama. And, you know, Coach Saban, there's this clip that comes on.
It's a great TikTok reel.
Yeah. And he's like, you know, you had your friend and you probably pissed him off taking his keys, but look where he is now. Good kid, never had a problem in Alabama, but took it to, you know, himself
and his life changed forever. He took someone's life.
And he's in, and it's just one of those things that, you know, more importantly, and that's kind of, to me, I think the NIL is great. I think all of the money exchange and what your demands are should be, but how important it is to these families and to these kids to get someone in front of them that telling them like, man, these little mistakes, you know, to have an advisor of some sort. And if you start it in high school, and if these high school programs now, you know, you look at some of these places, you know, in Texas or that they have, their stadiums are small college stadiums. Of course. And so like, there's a lot of money to do that. So implement someone, whether it's an alumni or someone that can really get after them, who's been in it, not somebody who, me, for instance, to go in and talk to them and be like, they're going to be like, this old head, you know, you never played, but I'm talking about kids that either played, you know, they had another career in sales or they had another entrepreneurship, something in their life, but not, you know, someone to guide them and start it even at a younger age, because now it just kind of seems it's too bad and it's sad.
No, it is. And one of the reasons for me reaching out to Coach Martin, I said, obviously, you know, good friend of mine, and, you know, we've had some conversations, you know, about what's going on in high school and that. And I always watch down in Wichita to see what Coach Martin's doing. But what caught my eye years ago, Jamie, when I went down to visit Coach Martin in Wichita, and we'll get into more of this when we bring him on the show here a little bit later. Coach Martin is a guy that the stuff that you see him do, he steps outside of what a normal high school football coach should do. And I want to ask him a little bit about that, because you read the stories, you see the stuff on social media, and you hear parents speak up about stuff Coach Martin's done outside the box to keep a kid from being on the street. His program is very disciplined on the way the kids have to make their grades and do their stuff. But again, you know, how much, you know, like you said, it has, the discipline and stuff has to start earlier, but you start to see these kids just start to kind of run wild because all this NIL money is floating around. It's like, if I don't like something over here, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to take this money. I'm going to take this dollar. And it's like, where do, you know, does the discipline start, and how does that, you know, relegate to the kids as they start growing? And I want to ask Coach Martin, and in case that guy, I know a big name kid that he had here recently, you know, Breece Hall, and shout out to what that kid does at the Jets.
Amazing.
On and off the field. But hopefully we talk to Coach Martin. We'll see if Coach can help us bring on Breece one day, because I'd love to pick Breece's brain a little bit about what Coach Martin did for him at Wichita Northwest, which kind of instilled some stuff in his discipline, and what that's done for him as he went to Iowa State and then went on to, you know, the NFL.
Yeah.
So a lot of good stuff to talk about there. We'll get to Coach Martin. Can't wait to bring him on. But let's dive into right now. I think we should dive into the college playoffs, and then a little bit of the, you know, obviously not a little bit, but a lot about the NFL, as much as going on, you know, now. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about the college playoff, man. Yeah. What do you think? How do you feel the college playoff system has played out going this year to the 12 teams? How do you see the games? Is there anything that you'd like to see change?
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts about the playoff system this year?
I think that they should kind of reseed, for one. And I think, of no disrespect to smaller schools or smaller, you know, conferences, but if you win that conference, you shouldn't be seeded against, I mean, most people can watch the eye test and knew, like, some of, you know, Boise State, it was, when they played Penn State, it was just different.
Right.
And you know, the kid is a stud running back. And I mean, obviously, I think he gained 100 yards maybe, but it looks so much more challenging for him to get there against Penn State's defense, where you're going against kids that are going to play on Sundays. It looked a lot faster. The impact was there were a lot bigger collisions. Right. It was just different. So I think that you have to look at, and I'm sure they'll get it right, and they're playing with stuff and they're trying to get stuff.
Of course. First year going to 12 teams, right?
Yeah. But the fact that it was kind of the blue bloods, if you will, that were in there, you know, in the last Final Four. The best one was that Arizona State Texas game.
Man, what a game that was, huh? How about that? How about that running back Arizona State? Would you take that kid to play with you?
Oh my God,
to play
yes.
with the Chiefs on Sundays?
Absolutely. I mean, that's just a tough, hard-nosed kid that that kid will put it out there for you.
I put something on social media on Facebook saying that I'd love to see the Chiefs draft him. And you got some people that know the game that were like, gotta be a guy. He'd be a great special teams guy. He'd be a great guy catching the ball in the backfield, running the ball, and short yardage and third down stuff. And then some people that just chime in and be like, we need a left tackle. And it's like, okay, but I know what we need.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, a kid that plays with that much grit, that much heart, that much grr.
Yeah.
Man, sign me up every day and twice on Sunday to have a kid like that in your backfield or on your team.
But then last Thursday, that Notre Dame game, I mean, that was this, and that Notre Dame Penn State game was so much fun. And just when you thought like Penn State's out of it, now Notre Dame's out of it, they just kept fighting and playing. And I mean, it was just such a fun, high level college football game.
I'm not trying to interrupt you right there, but let's go back for just for a second to back when we were younger. Who was my team when we were growing up?
Yeah, the Irish.
And who was your team?
Michigan. Yeah.
We would never, if I said I like somebody, there was no way you were ever going to be like, I'm an Irish fan. You were in junior high and you'd wear some type of Michigan jersey or t-shirt just because you knew I liked to wear Notre Dame. I liked the Irish stuff. And we would always go at it, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
Michigan,
100%. And I just, and we started as like, I despise Ohio State, even though they're a factory. I mean, they're a factory and they're so good, and their wide receivers, I mean, year in and year out, they come and play in the league, and they matter, and they're difference makers. It's insane. I mean,
wide receiver, right?
I mean, now, I don't know who produces and puts more. I mean, bigger guys. LSU's right up there.
Yes,
I mean,
for sure. Yeah,
LSU, and you look what Malik Neighbors did this year, and he's an absolute freak.
Yep, freak. I mean, for sure.
But Ohio State puts guys, and I mean, it just does. And that freshman, the freshman for Ohio State. That guy,
he's special, man.
I mean, they would say right now he'd be a top 5 pick as a freshman. I mean, that's crazy. And that'll be interesting too, to see if college changes that rule, as opposed to you have to be there 3 years, maybe it's 2 years. Because, once again, if it was like you could leave after your first year, but there's a hardship year that you don't, I mean, I don't know how that works. And that was the biggest thing going back to the day, as that these kids' bodies aren't ready.
That's kind of my thing, man. I don't know in football as much if you got a receiver coming out as a 17-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, that if his body's ready to be thrown up against 22, 23-year-old men. Because, I mean, you could come out and have all the speed and all the, but man, there's a little bit of difference when you start getting your early 20s and your body starts, adapting, putting on more weight and strength. I don't know if your body at 17, a freshman's ready to go.
And I think that, I think that's true. And I think it should be a year, a freshman year. But once again, these kids are so incredibly different now, and how they train. Sure. Their bodies are a lot different than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So I don't think, and also I think that, it's kind of, they're making a lot of, NIL money, but I think that some of these kids can go in and perform and be guys that contribute, whether it's, he there's no way he come in and be a guy that gets 15 targets a game. I mean, that's different. But I think these kids that it's just different. The game is different. The game's like,
it is. But I guess when I'm looking at kids that can make more of an impact early on in a sport, I mean, you think some of these guys you see like in baseball, you see some of these baseball players, and again, their bodies at 17, 18 aren't transformed like they are once they played a couple years of college ball. And maybe basketball, you can say like, okay, some guys come straight out of high school, because there's been guys that have done that and had success. But I still just think that development and growth and that, I think in football you need a couple years in college. I really do. And I hate to hold a kid back, but you also see some of those receivers that have come out too and gone into a complex offense like Coach Reed's, that no matter how talented he was, still takes some time to adjust to all that type of offense, everything they're calling and all the stuff going on there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, I'd say a year for sure, maybe 2. But, anymore, you're trying to get younger and younger and younger, as far as like who you're drafting. It's that way in the NBA. It's like why kids that stay, in college basketball, the kids staying 4 and 5 years now, like even 7 and 8, like Hunter and, DeJuan. It's, it's hard. They're either going to go play overseas or they're making, just as much money. But there'll be a place for those, but there's certain guys that can get out and play.
Right.
But no, the playoffs are awesome. I can't wait to see Ohio State, Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a great game. I think, Ohio State, do you know the points, what the points are?
I don't know what the points are right now. You know what I was thinking of too, bro, that Notre Dame Penn State game, like you said, God, that game was just back and forth, man. I mean, it was back and forth. Even Texas, as much as I thought Ohio State, I talked a little bit to Jamal Charles, I talked a little bit to Derek Johnson, just in text messages before the game, and I said, does Texas have enough? Do they have enough juice? Do they have enough? And they both were like, yeah, they've got enough, but their level of like how much they can miss and how much they can have a playoff or something is less than Ohio State. Ohio State can screw something up and still have enough horses and dogs, sure, like because as strong as they were. But Texas is there. Texas has those guys. To me, seeing them this year in the SEC, they're a little bit of a different talent level they have in the Big 12, man. They got more kids, I think.
Yeah,
Texas
I mean,
right now.
and I think but I think they always, Texas is, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, they've never lacked for talent. But
right.
I think it is an uptick, and I think once that money came available, I don't know many schools that have as much money as Texas does as far as like being able to pay kids.
All you need to do is go look at that TikTok that had those Lamborghinis outside there when they were bringing those 5-star recruits in.
Well, you get the Ewers kid who was the quarterback, and you get Arch Manning. There's just a lot of money that goes that's available out there. So no, but Texas is Texas. They'll always be Texas, and they'll thrive in the SEC. It's just such a incredibly tough conference to consistently win at.
For sure.
And you look at even Georgia, who got, they were obviously they were put in with 2 losses,
right,
and they got, he's a great coach.
Oh yeah.
And they got talent everywhere, but they didn't have the quarterback this year.
Right.
They didn't have the quarterback this year.
That's a big thing, man.
And it showed. And it's like,
sure.
they have a ton of talent. They have a ton of talent, but it's consistent. Like, Dabo at Clemson. Clemson 4 or 5 years ago was getting all these kids and
right,
putting big time guys in, and they've kind of taken a couple steps back.
Right.
It's just so hard to win on a consistent basis in the SEC.
I was trying to find, you know me, bro. You know I love my Irish, and I was going on and I was trying to find a flipping Kelly Green, Riley Leonard jersey, man, and I couldn't find one. They're all sold out. They didn't have one, man.
I bet.
They're all sold out across the board.
I bet.
But Notre Dame, Ohio State should be good, man. That's going to be a good.
Week from tonight.
I think it's going to be a great national championship. It'll be fun to watch. I know we're going to come down here and shoot. We may have to shoot a little bit earlier because I know Darren Sproles is going to want to watch that national championship. We're going to want to watch it. So excited about being able to do that. But yeah, Notre Dame, Ohio State should be good, man.
Yeah, I'm pulling for your Irish for sure.
Notre Dame should be good. Oh yeah, because you hate the Buckeyes, man.
Oh man, I can't. Being rooting for Michigan, it was just always a get over Ohio State and beat Ohio State with Eddie George, and that was when Jim Tressel,
right,
they called him the vest. He'd always wear the sweater vest, and even legendary Woody Hayes, he was an asshole.
Yeah,
he was an asshole. I was a Bo Schembechler fan as a little kid, but yeah, I just Ohio State, once again, they're you kind of hate what you aren't, and I've just hated Ohio State because they're so good and they've always put in guys in the league, and they've just gotten better and better and better. And now it's an elite program, and the horseshoe and the dotting of the I and all that shit.
Their guy over there, Ted Ginn Jr., way back in the day, Ted Ginn Sr., from what I understand, amazing high school coach there in the Cleveland area. Our dude Frank Clark played for Ted Ginn Ted Ginn Sr. over there.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I've got to go and look. We'll have Chris Chambers on sometime. Chris Chambers is with a company called Game Face Training. They do a lot of training for everything leading up to the combine for NBA and NFL. But I think Chris played for Ted Ginn Sr. over there as well. I know Frank did. But a really, really good program there in the Cleveland area.
Yeah.
But I saw
Ted Ginn Jr. was a bad boy.
Yeah,
he was a bad boy.
100%.
He was legit.
I saw this reel the other day, which you just hated. It was Ohio State. It said buck around and find out.
Yeah, no, and it's like I said, you can't. I can't. No, yeah, I can't. I can't talk shit on them. It's and they've put up chips, and they've done They've done that. But yeah, with that, man, let's talk about the weekend that was NFL playoffs.
Before we jump into that, I want to ask you one more question. Do you think with the college playoff system being 12 the way it was, I think that's something that you talked about was a lot of stuff you see on social media and people talking about as far as the reseeding. Because I think you're right. I think you go just like you would do in the NCAA and the college basketball. You know, they need to be seeded like 1 through 12 or 1 through 16, like that way, instead of being like, hey, if you're a conference winner, you're top 4 and you get a bye, because there's other teams that probably could have had a bye over those teams based on strength of schedule, who they play, that type of thing. So I think you'll see that thing change. Do you think next year, or it'll be a couple years down the road, that you see a college football team go from 12 to maybe a 16-team playoff?
I think probably within a couple of years. I think 16 is. I think that's a good, because those schools that win their conference can take on, because there was like now, and I'll give Colorado, although they got smacked with those kids, and those kids. It's going to be so fun to see how this shapes up and everything that's happened in the NFL right now with all these coaching. Just today. Old boy in Dallas got, parted ways. He wanted a 5-year deal. They wanted to give him a 1 to 2 year deal, like prove it, McCarthy. But how these people play out and who goes where.
So he's done, right? McCarthy's done in Dallas,
done,
right?
Yeah, he's done. The only and there's I forgot how many openings off the top of my head, but the only one that's been filled is Vrabel going to New England.
That makes sense. New England
makes sense. It makes sense.
Vrabel's a hell of a coach.
It makes sense. And May really came on to the end of this year, and a guy like Vrabel and a guy that's a no nonsense guy. He's going to, I think Mayo is a bit of a reach and kind of a guy that felt comfortable for them, but Vrabel's a big hire.
Yes.
I mean, Vrabel's a big hire. And I think that he's going to, New England's got a ton of money into the cap.
Right.
He's a younger version of Andy, not offensive minded, but as a player's coach that you love to play for.
Yep.
And I think he's going to get guys that want to go play there, and they're going to have a lot of money to go play there and surround him with May. And they have to probably draft a little bit better, because New England always sucked at drafting, even when the hoodie was there.
Right.
Which is really funny, speaking of the hoodie, is because they said he was interested in Dallas, but they, at that point in time, were like, McCarthy's a guy. It'll be really, really, really interesting to see if he's like, I want that job now.
Wow. Yeah,
I want that job now. I mean, and there's, Jerry is willing to pay. He'll pay.
I'm curious about asking one of our boys, big Pats fan, our boy John Pacerna. I want to ask Big John what he thought about the Patriots beating the Bills on week 18.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And dropping in draft choices, because that game meant nothing, man.
No.
But how do you tell a team not to play though?
And the kid that backed him up, he's like, I haven't played some preseason, so these kids want to go ball out. And once again, they have their quarterback. May's their quarterback.
Right.
It's one of those things in the NFL, like we knew from early on. If you don't have a quarterback, you're fucked.
Right.
If you don't, and that's just it. Everyone's looking for the next one, and that's what going in the playoffs. That's what makes. I've talked to a lot of friends via text, and like, oh, the Texans. I'm like, we're going to get the best version of the Texans that we played in week 16.
Week 16, yes, we did. Yeah.
And they were still within striking distance.
27-19.
It was still in striking distance, and they suffered that horrific injury to Tank Dell, and he held on that ball, and that poor kid is going to miss quite a bit of time.
Yeah, that was pretty tough to watch.
And CJ was visibly upset, and they, but they have a lot of guys on that squad that are going to present challenges, and
for sure.
They will. It's going to be a tough one.
The Texans will bring it. We'll absolutely get their best shot. And we'll dive into more of that here. We're getting ready to go to break for a second, because what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to bring Coach Steve Martin from Wichita Northwest. We'll talk some high school, talk some NIL, talk a little Breece Hall. But I really want to dive into Coach Martin and the discipline stuff we talked about here a little bit ago.
For sure.
So let's take a break, man.
Perfect.
And we'll get back out of here in a few. Coach Martin. We'll bring Coach Martin on.
Perfect.
3, 2.
Here at Love You Bro Podcast, we'd like to give a special thanks and a special shout out to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, we're not able to do what we want to do, and that's be able to come on every week and talk about sports, drink a few beers, have some great guests on, some great co-hosts. So I want to give a shout out and a thanks to our sponsors, and our main sponsor that sponsoring us this year is Proactive Solutions. So we'd like to thank Proactive Solutions. Proactive Solutions has been delivering infrastructure solutions and IT design and consultation services to clients ranging from startups, Fortune 500 companies for more than 27 years. They're proud to be a Kansas City locally owned and a top woman-owned business, offering custom solutions and personalized support. You can trust Proactive Solutions with all your technology needs. If your company needs IT solutions, reach out to Proactive Solutions at www.proactivesolutions.com. So shout out to Natalie and Dean Thede. Thank you guys for allowing us to be able to do this every week. We're super excited about that. I want to give a special shout out to Specialized Printing. My bonus son, Tommy O'Donnell, does awesome work over there. They do t-shirts, they do koozies, they do hats. And one of the big things is like some of our friends and family that we've been seeing around have been asking us about when's the merch dropping. So merch is coming, soon. Please follow us on our podcast. We're going to be dropping some trucker hats, all different colors for our college kids. I know we're going to come out with some K-State hats, some Mizzou hats, and some, of course, our Kansas Jayhawk hats. So we'll have some really cool Love You Brew, Love You Brew. We do love the brew, don't we? Love You Bro merchandise. So Tommy will be doing all that. Check out Specialized Printing and everything he does over there. Another shout out goes to Lula Southern Cookhouse, Brittany and Bradley Gilmore. Thank you guys for allowing us to shoot in this super cool space. Everybody who's come on and shot an episode with us up here really loves the space. It's a great event space. Stay tuned because we are getting married here coming up soon. My lovely fiance over there and myself, and you never know if we might just throw some pop-up party here, maybe, babe, here in the event space, maybe. Okay, all right. We're not going to talk about that. So Lula, thank you, Brittany and Bradley Gilmore. Thank you guys for allowing us to do this up here. Our two sponsors for tonight's episode and bringing on a special friend of ours, Tom Bucati, the Wolf of Waldo. A special shout out goes to Bobby Baker's Lounge. Bobby Baker's Lounge was started in 1993 by Bobby Baker, good friend of ours. It was started off by Bobby Baker himself with a long history of family in the business. His father, John Baker, helped him find his path as a bar owner. In 2013, his daughter, Becky, purchased from him as he retired into the Golden Sunset. The 900 square foot dive bar has become a staple in Waldo since the day it opened. Says right here, Bobby Baker's is huge supporters of all firefighters and police officers. So Bobby Baker's wants to give a big shout out to all firefighters and police officers and say thank you. We appreciate everything you guys do day in and day out to keep us safe in the community. Becky, thank you so much for being a sponsor. Again, without our sponsors, we don't get to do what we want to do the most, and that's bring Love You Bro podcast to you. Our other great sponsor today is our good friend, Brian Shorgle, one of Tom Bucati's best friends. Shout out to Brian. You've always been great and by our side, Jamie and I, to, support whenever we've asked, we've ever needed. So O'Neill's, it's a neighborhood restaurant and bar located at 9417 Mission Road. O'Neill's was incorporated in 1999. And has been serving up comfort food classics like Irish pot roast, in-house breaded fish and chips, homemade soups, and many other classics that make O'Neill's a local favorite. I know Shorgle's throwing some great parties over there. I know Tom frequents it. Jessica and I go there. Back in the day, I know we used to take my mom and dad over there for steak night over there. Starting in October, O'Neill's will be kicking off its 25-year anniversary celebration with special promotions and events that will last through March. They can be found on the internet at kconeils.com. So for more details, go there. And as Brian always says, go Chiefs, go Royals, go Tigers, go Hawks, go K-State Wildcats. So Brian Shorgle, O'Neill's, thank you so much for being a sponsor tonight. We really appreciate it. Becky, thank you so much for the sponsorship from Bobby Baker's. You guys get out to O'Neill's, get out to Bobby Baker's. Without places like this, you guys, we can't do what we do. So again, thank you for following us on Love You Bro podcast, and please tune in and follow us on all of our social media outlets. So thank you so much to our sponsors for helping us bring it to you every week. Welcome back to Love You Bro podcast. We are very fortunate tonight, bro. Like I told you earlier, very fortunate to bring on a good friend of mine, someone that I followed closely the last several years. We want to welcome on Wichita Northwest High School coach, Coach Steve Martin. Coach, thanks for being on tonight.
Yeah, man, excited to get on here and talk some ball and share what we do a little bit at Northwest and some other stuff. So happy to be here, guys.
Thanks,
again,
Coach.
Coach.
Hey, Coach, how was your Christmas? How was your holidays? How was your New Year? How'd that go?
Man, it was good. I got roped into taking my entire family to New York instead of a beach, So normally around this time, I'm trying to get on a beach and enjoy some beverages and a lot warmer weather than I'm used to. But, we went to New York, took, our family, me and Natalie, my wife of almost 20 years, got our 4 kids. And, so we went there, and my oldest decided that he was ready to take the next step in becoming a man and propose to his girlfriend. So we got to do that down in New York, and
awesome.
Got to go see a former player of mine, Breece Hall, play for the Jets. And,
yes, sir.
We just explored New York and had a great time. So I had a great time for the holidays and spend it with family, and it was a good time.
Congratulations, Coach.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Well, Coach, listen, part of bringing you on here is, we've been blessed to do this podcast here. We started last summer. We've been very blessed to bring on the coaches and players and people we brought on. And one of the big things we've been talking about lately is the college playoffs. But more so than that, digging in deeper than that, is where all the NIL stuff is kind of heading, stuff that's transforming in high school. And one of the big things we talked about in our show earlier, it's like, where do you start? How young do you start? For you, Coach, because I know there's so much talent in Wichita. There's so much talent there. And as you just mentioned a minute ago, your guy, Breece Hall, that you brought through your program, I know you're very close with, went to Ohio State, or went to Ohio State. We were just talking about that. Went to Iowa State, and then is now with the Jets. But, Coach, in your program, as you start seeing some of these kids, how young now, Coach, do you have to start? And I know you guys do a great job with your discipline of your program there and the way you bring these kids in. But now, in your mindset, where do you start, or how young do you start, Coach? Do you need to start really kind of laying the groundwork on what they're going to see?
Well, for us, it immediately has to start their freshman year now, with the portal and what's going on in the transfer portal. I mean, it's I'd be lying if I didn't tell you it didn't affect our guys. We're, instead of competing for, scholarship at, the many institutions, whether it's Division I down to, NAIA, it's becoming a saturated market, to whereas, you were able to make some phone calls and get some regional attention, and that, if that really transpired, you were able to do that for a kid that, his junior year. We talk about Breece Hall a lot at Northwest because he's a great role model for our kids, but Breece didn't start till his junior year for us. And we received a call from Nate Shieldhouse, now quality control offense of the LA Rams right now, probably getting ready to kick off now. And he goes, Coach, what can you tell me about Breece? We think he's a diamond at gym. Why is no one offering this guy? I said, well, he didn't start till his junior year. So, looking back at that, now with the portal, where these juniors right now, if you're not getting Division I looks, not saying you can't be the 1% that will get an attention or a scholarship, but what we're seeing in the trend with the portal is that if you are not on a radar as a sophomore, it's becoming very hard. I've been at Northwest for 14 years. I just made a count the other day, updated our deal with guys that have been through the system. Went JUCO. We're at 18 kids that have went Division I in the 14 years here. And, we're blessed with some talent with our class of 26 and 27 class. But if we are not getting these guys, in front of colleges by the end of their sophomore year, it's starting to not happen. And, we're getting hit by that hard, some of the things, and actually a guy on my staff has a young man who was his son, tremendous ball player. I think he's a Division I linebacker. Well, he went out and went to play at Northwest Missouri State, which is a phenomenal football program right here in the Midwest.
Of course.
But, even him, their school just got ransacked by the portal because, we're talking to college coaches, and, that's $1 billion industry of college football, and coaches are on the hot seat. I mean, you look at someone who, Norvell down at Florida State was on a magical season, a quarterback injury away from probably being in the playoffs last year to this year just absolutely being a terrible product on the field. And so a guy like Coach Norvell, who I knew when he was at Tulsa as an assistant under Graham, if they don't produce next year, there's a good chance that the Florida State boosters are going to get rid of him. So he can't come and recruit a Wichita Northwest kid going, we believe you could make an impact next year. Right now, he has to have a for sure thing.
Of course.
And he's got to go get that kid, maybe that kid at Northwest Missouri State who maybe got under recruited, or a kid that's playing at Miami of Ohio, or I don't know, Bowling Green that can play now to save their jobs, because at the end of the day, these coaches' livelihoods and their families are threatened now, in a yearly basis. And so they have to produce. And so we can cry about that and cry about that in our cereal and bitch and moan, but it's not going to do us any good as a high school coach,
of course,
to sit there and complain about it. We have to be proactive. So we are getting freshmen and sophomores out who we think have the potential to play at that level in front of colleges right now. And thank God that, we have those connections here at Northwest that coaches are coming by and looking at these guys and saying, Coach, where do you see this kid? And so that's where we're at right now. We cannot wait for a kid till his junior year, like Breece, to go, Coach, I got a great back for you. They're like, well, that's great. I have the backup from Oregon coming already signed.
Of course.
That's where we're at right now. It's the difference between a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid to sometimes now with this eligibility and the COVID year and the extra year. I mean, they're competing against 23, 22-year-olds for scholarships now.
Of course.
And we're going to lose that battle every day.
Coach, one of the things that we've seen, in my company with Primetime Assistants, some of the stuff I do, we go out and we help some kids. I remember a couple of years back, we went to go see a kid down in Atlanta, and he was a linebacker, and he was hell bent on, I got to get into the SEC, right? And we went and we watched him, and the thing was that he was 5'11", and it was like he was a linebacker, he was a hitter, ton of tackles, but when talking to his parents, we had to go and say, when was the last time you saw a 5'11" linebacker at Georgia or Alabama or one of those schools? But we were kind of under the impression of, you got to be on the field and be seen somewhere. So if you're not going to go play in one of those schools, go to a JUCO, go to a Northwest Missouri State, and be on the field where you're getting those reps seen. It doesn't do any good to go get buried on a team somewhere, correct?
Yeah, and that's the message that we're trying to relay to our players right now, is that, listen, take that offer at Fort Hays State. Take that offer to Northwest Missouri State, Missouri Western. Go play at the JUCO level. If we're not getting the attention that you think you deserve, let's give you some more years, to put a resume together to where you could go on and play at that dream school. If it's SEC, Big 12, Big 10. People cannot be so tunnel focused right now on, I have to go here now, because, guys, the odds – I mean, you might as well go sit at the casino and hit the slot machine because you might have better odds at a slot machine right now.
Sure. Right. Go ahead, Sam. I'm sorry.
So, Coach, let me ask you this. So when these kids are getting this advice, if you will, right? If they're getting this advice, is it encompass family, outer sources that say, hey, you need to go do this? Or it's like having the kid's best decision to say, hey, and I know it's hard. It's hard to say, tell any 17, 18-year-old kid, this is what's best for you. But, what you see a lot in the last 2 or 3 years, you see 4-star and 5-star kids at Texas, at LSU, not getting the reps and going to a school that was less desirable out of high school, but they're getting to showcase their talent a little bit more and play a little bit more. And so for me, it's like, how do you get across to those kids, this is what's absolutely best for you? And even it's like, almost like you say you're a parent. It's almost like parenting. I have little ones. It's like, this is what's best. I know it sucks right now and you're going to be disappointed, but this is what's best, in the long run with these guys.
Well, first of all, it's the educational process, is that you have to be able to educate these people on what's happening, because everybody wants to hear the feel-good story of this happened to this kid. Well, every kid is different. And you look, for instance, 2 names that'll come up, Carson Beck. I mean, that guy was a Heisman candidate at the beginning of the year. Now all of a sudden he's getting told to kick rocks, go to the draft or transfer portal.
Yeah.
So he goes to Miami and gets $4.5 million that we know of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That we know of,
Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden he's going to go to Miami on South Beach and he's going to make more than Brock Purdy in his entire contract. So people got to realize that just took a roster spot from University of Miami.
Sure.
Well, what's Georgia going to do? Well, they got the Stanford kid who's a great ball player. Well, what if he's not ready? Georgia has another guy maybe in the portal coming to compete with him. And it's just a trickle-down effect. And so you got to, as a high school coach, we have to educate. We have to be able to sit down and have these hard conversations. I've had kids get upset and parents get upset with me because of that. But it's my job is that I have to put out the facts. I got to be able to educate these kids and parents and let them know what they're up against, because it's a different animal than when I was going in high school in 1999. It's different than in 2018 when I had Marcus Hicks and Breece Hall. It's different than when, we just sent a group of kids out of the COVID year. We sent 6 kids to Division I that year. It's different from even the year 2000. And so, you're looking at all these things that are happening, and you just got to make sure that parents are getting educated on realistic expectations. And I think that's what we're doing a pretty good job of. And, it'll continue to evolve as more and more rules come out. The Vanderbilt quarterback, his name escapes me right now, but now all of a sudden he's got a waiver that means that all his JUCO days don't matter, and a guy that, whether you like to listen to him or not, a controversial guy, Coach Brown, talks to it now, is now as a JUCO, are you now a prep school? They were a prep school before.
Yes.
Kids that had grades didn't get the opportunities, but now they really are a prep school. So you're going to go there for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, who knows, to get to that next level. And so, we are at a spot in college athletics right now that when you get it figured out, send me the manual and PDF book so I can read it.
Yeah.
Because it's something that is changing and evolving on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And so, we just got to do the best we can to help kids and educate them. And that's our goal here.
Yeah.
Right. On a daily basis for sure, Coach, because we're seeing a lot of that. Jamie and I were just talking a little bit earlier. A friend of ours had put some stuff on social media, and he was talking about a kid going to Florida and talking about the NIL demands he had. And one of the demands he had in there was he wanted a full-time 24/7 driver, but not just a driver. It was, I want a driver in an Escalade 24/7, driving me to and from my classes, to and from when I go and do anything. And I'm just sitting looking at this. I'm like, this is unreal what these kids are asking for, but the colleges are giving it to them. This NIL money, they're giving it to them. Like you said, the kid you're talking about just got the $4.5 million. Unbelievable what these kids are getting right now. I think there's a place for it, but I think they're going to have to put a cap on it somewhere, don't you, Coach?
It's unreal. It's crazy, the stories, and I'm not going to bring up institutions of things that I know that have been offered to kids here, even in the Wichita area. But you're starting to go, what are they doing? Like it's kind of like, I don't know if it's boosters. I don't know where this money is all coming from, but there's a lot of money getting thrown at 16, 17-year-old young men right now. And I hope that their parents are getting the education and the knowledge that they need to know to what to do with this money for this kid. Because, if you're, I've seen upwards of, $2 million, getting thrown at a 16, 17-year-old kid. And you're going, I hope that they're putting this money away, because
100%.
If their dreams don't end up if they're not playing on Sundays in the NFL, I hope that they can take what they're getting now and set up a pretty successful life for them to have some generational wealth and some things that they can pass on down to others and potentially live off of. But, one thing that's really stuck in my mind now is Quinn Ewers at Texas. They just lost a heartbreaking game to Ohio State Friday night. And people are like, hey, see you later, get out of here. We're ready for Manning to start. And now Ewers is possibly going to be going in the portal.
Yeah.
And it's like,
just crazy.
That kid just was arguably one snap away from potentially playing in overtime to go play in the national championship. Now, all of a sudden, he's not good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy what's going on. I hope there's some regulations that happen that keep the parity in college football going. I do like what's going on in the transfer portal. I do think kids deserve second chances, just like coaches. If I want to leave Northwest and go to another school, and maybe a kid came and played for me specifically, should that kid get punished because I made a family decision to make my family outcome better? That's where I wrestle with it. Is it good for the game? Is it bad? I don't know, but it's what's happening and we have to deal with it, or I need to quit crying and get out of the business. And I'm not going to do that. So we have to adapt just like everybody else.
Coach, I was saying to Jude earlier, I was like, I like the ability for kids to be able to move, maybe a move or two. I don't think it should be every year. They should be able to go somewhere different. And, for the longest time, college coaches could move and the kids suffered because they'd have to sit out a year. But the coach could say, hey, I'm going to be here for your 4 years. Now I'm not. I'm going to go to a better opportunity, but you're stuck there. So that's a part that I think I like, that the kids are able to do it. But I read and I've heard, from Coach Saban that him and his wife would go on these or host these recruiting trips. And he goes, it went from about what they were going to provide for him to how much money are you going to give us? Like and he was like, before As hit the couch, it's like, what money am I going to get? How is it going to get moved over? What's it going to get? And he's like, his wife, when they would leave, it's like, it's not even about building relationships and having relationships and sustaining relationships throughout these kids' career and their best interest. It's about how much money are you going to get tonight? How much money you're going to get in a month? And it just kind of takes that out of it, because I don't think there's any more loyalty of like playing for a coach that recruited you and was one of the first to be at your high school game when you were a sophomore, and to show interest and put that time into your family and put that time in. It's just now, hey, what can you do for me? And you may as well be faceless, unfortunately, as a coach or as a, in that realm of what's going on right now. So it's, to me, that's the part that's a little bit sad. It's not even frustrating. It's just kind of sad that that's what it is. But it's obviously, I'm an old head. Everything's evolving. It's kind of coming the way it is. But hopefully there's some kind of regulations put on, hey, you can do it once, maybe twice, but then you're kind of locked in. And and how do you feel about that, Coach? Like,
well, I mean, before I forget about this, because I'm getting old in my age, the one thing, that you're talking about is players moving is like, you're exactly right on what you hit with. Kids aren't even really focused on what school they're going to. They're almost going to the highest bidder. And so when you talk about the portal, going back to our experience with Breece, narrowed his teams down to 5 teams at one time. I said, okay, where are you going to be your best fit? What's your goal? Coach, I want to end up playing on a Sunday. Okay, so we need to go to a school that's going to maximize your talents and what kind of running style you are. So we knew that Breece, and I'll say this to the end, it's one of the frustrations I have with this place he's at, is that he is an inside-outside zone runner. Well, they're a gap scheme team. I don't think he's a good fit in that offensive system. And so what you're seeing is in the portal is these guys are now shifting their minds and going, well, this guy just offered me, $10 million, the quarterback that's going to Michigan, $10 million for a kid that has not ever played in front of a big kid crowd. It's crazy. What if he's not a pro-style quarterback that they need at Michigan? And so now he goes and all of a sudden he's not happy there at Michigan. Well, are you not happy because you took the money? Are you not happy because you didn't look at the grand evolving thing of playing to your best and maximizing your potential? And, that's the thing is we talk about is whether you're an O-lineman, D-lineman, what kind of system best fits you. Those are the schools that if you get the opportunity and are recruiting you, that's where you need to go, not to, the highest bidder, because you're going to end up being happy because, you two can sit there and talk all you want to. Money does not always buy happiness.
Sure.
And that's what these young men are starting to realize. And that's why I believe you're seeing so many kids leaving in the portal, and it's just, I hope it doesn't ruin the collegiate game, because I know you guys are big NFL fans, but I am a diehard college football fan, and
Absolutely.
I do not want it to ruin the game of collegiate football.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of things, Coach, that I want to touch on. Something you talked about. One, is education ever talked about anymore, Coach? Because I feel like I don't hear anything about education anymore, or what they're going to take, or what classes they're going to take. All I'm seeing is these demands of what I want in my NIL stuff. I don't hear anything more about education. Does anybody on a recruiting trip talk about education to these kids anymore?
Not a whole lot. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, I will continue to preach this to every one of my kids is you got to use the institution to get your education, to set yourself for a lifetime, you know, because at the end of the day, the game's going to be gone.
Right.
And you're going to have to fall back and rely on some things that you learned, whether that's in a trade type of school environment, or if you want to go into the business world, or you want to be in education and go into coaching. You're going to have to rely on what you learn and your connections. And so at the end of the day, I always remind my guys, you know, when I talk to a kid that's at a school, I always talk about how school's going. How are your grades? How are you keeping up with the workload? You know, those were the first conversations I had with Breece. You know, whenever I talked to LJ, who's up at South Dakota for us, you know, a kid that probably got under recruited and will get probably some opportunities in the near future with himself. But, you know, it's always, how is education going? How are you doing in school? Because those are the things that matter. And if I change my tone to, well, how much are they paying you? Then I'm just feeding into the cycle that I don't think is people.
Sure. Of course.
And so, you know, you're curious as an educator making, you know, and you're going, my God, I'm in the wrong business. I wish I had your ability, but you know, it's the evolving of educating kids, and that's why we're in it. At the end of the day, we're trying to make an impact on kids. We're trying to help kids, you know, get to where they want to be, and that's something that, you know, forever how long where the good Lord above grants me to coach, you know, that will continue to be how I handle things here.
Coach, I have one other thing really quick that I want to get to. You know, I keep thinking about and everything we hear about, you know, kids and the transfer portal, right? Coach, you remember, I mean, I was a guy who graduated and played back in, you know, in 88. Jamie played in 93. You were 98. Is that what you said, Coach, when you graduated? 99. So some of the lessons, some of the life lessons that we had to learn growing up, I think are lost on all this transfer portal, because I feel like kids nowadays, you know, if someone gets knocked down or you get told you're not going to play or some other kid's going to come in, I'm transferring. I think some of the biggest lessons I ever learned, if I was playing basketball and I wasn't playing defense and I got set on the bench, I knew what I was on the bench for. But I just feel like some of these kids, when they get knocked down, they're going against stuff and they're facing adversity that are going to be life lessons for them later in their life. Are they seeing these things as much? Or are they just, because, I mean, Coach, you and I both know when you get outside of football out that the real life and the real world are going to hit, and you're going to get hit down. You're going to get a job taken away from you. And how do you respond to that adversity? Is that something you talk to the kids about?
Yeah. I mean, you see it all the time. You talk about the college portal. I swear to God, there's a high school transfer portal. And, you know, it's one of those things when someone's not getting what they wanted, they're quick to pull kids, even in high school these days. And you see it happening at little league levels. And I remember a very, very honest role. I go into my junior year. I was projected to be starting center. I worked my butt off. I led her as a sophomore. I was our deep snapper. I worked my tail off. You know, I was ready to be our starting center, go through team camp. I'm our starting center. First day of practice, I get moved to go play defensive line. And I'm going, what?
Right.
You know, I'm not sorry. I remember coming home pissed off at practice, you know, and I wish he was still here, because it's one of the best lessons I ever learned. My dad goes, so go win it back and fight for it.
There you go.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and listen to you cry and bitch. Go do something about it. And that's not what's happening at dinner tables or in the living rooms anymore. It's, you know, you're right. And that's the lesson that I hate to see right now, you know, because everybody's quick to jump ship when, you know, everything's not going right. It's easy to blame someone else, you know.
It's always someone else's fault, isn't it?
Failing. Yeah, and we're failing as parents when we do that.
Right.
You know, my son, I'm very proud of him. He started this year for me as a sophomore. But I told him after last season, you will earn every freaking inch that you get. And I will be harder on you than anybody will ever think. And some of his teammates said, Coach, you are on Brock. Like, he's doing a good job. I go, it doesn't matter. Like, because those are the lessons that he needs to learn to be a man.
Absolutely.
Those are the things that I learned out on a farm out in Andale, Kansas. You know, living in the city, those sometimes I can't raise him like my dad was able to, you know, but those are lessons that kids need to learn, because and you guys know this, life is hard and it doesn't care anywhere you're at in your life. It will knock your ass out. It will come for vengeance and blood. And you got to decide if you're going to get your ass up or if you're going to just bail ship on your family you created.
Of course.
How are you going to overcome that stuff? And I talk about that with our kids. One day you're going to have to be a man and you're going to be provided, and you might get fired and you might not like your boss. But guess what? You got to freaking bite your bottom lip and you got to get through it. You got to put your nose down and you got to grind through it. And good things come to those people that do that. And those are lessons that we're not teaching our kids right now.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because it's one of the best things to teach kids.
Coach, I have about a year of eligibility. I come play safety for you this year. I'll come.
Hey, you never know. They might petition that.
Yeah, I get a
and
year.
Now kids might get like, yeah, they didn't feel, I don't know. Hey, you might handle it with Casey. I'll give you Bill Faflick, the executive director of Casey. Maybe you get your year, man. Come on.
I appreciate you, Coach. Thanks for Coach. Thanks for everything, man. This was great.
Hey, Coach, let's talk a little bit about and like I said, when I first met you, Steve Brentham, a good friend of ours, introduced me and took me down there to Wichita and got a chance to go watch your program and stuff. And what I want to get to is I want to get to a little bit more about, and we may have to take a break here in a minute and then get back to it if we can, but I want to talk to you about the stuff that you do for your kids off the field, Coach, because I know there's a lot of instances in your life, in your coaching career, where you've done a lot of stuff to keep kids from going this way and being off the rack or off the rail, off the tracks, to getting them kind of back online, getting them back in and showing them how important the education, the football, the discipline stuff was. I want to talk a little bit about what you do with your kids down there at Wichita Northwest, because it's very impressive, Coach, what you do down there.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, when a parent approaches me or they're coming to our school, the first thing is I'm going to take care of your kid like they're mine. And so, when you say that, I think a lot of people say that, but what is in the context of that? Where are you willing to go for your family? Where are you willing to go for that kid that you just said that to their parents? Like, how far are you willing to go when you say that to someone? And, luckily, I'm blessed, guys. I have my wife, bless her heart, is an amazing person. And she is so open to our mission here in Wichita and Northwest of helping young men and young women in our track program and stuff like that. Is, if I got to give a kid the shirt literally off my back or have him stay with me, our house is always open. And so, we've housed a lot of kids. We've had a lot of kids live with us for periods of, maybe a couple days, maybe a couple months. And that's a promise we make to them. If times get hard and it's hard for you as a parent, luckily I have a big enough house to where, they can come stay on the couch, or if we have to buy an extra bed, if you're going to be here for extended time, we've done it, and it's just part of our mission. I talk about it all the time. I said this about 5 years ago. It's about, at the end of the day, how can you verify yourself that you're doing what you say? And, if we ever win a state title at Northwest, I'm going to be excited, but at the end of the day, when I'm gone, that plaque's going to collect dust. They might not even know who the head coach was there at the time. But if I can impact that kid and say, Coach Martin promised me he would take care of me when he needed me. And this happened to my parents. My parents maybe lost a job, or our house is too small. What did Coach do to help me out? And the biggest thing I can do is I can offer my life to my kids. And whether that's inviting them to stay with us at a house for a night or an afternoon, or if you need to stay here for 6-7 months to get things on track, that's what we're willing to do here at Northwest. And I've done that. And so, and that's just who I am. That's who my mom was. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I had 8 siblings, and my mom would literally give people the shirt off her back if she had to, and probably she shouldn't have. And I felt like sometimes, she got taken advantage of, and sometimes, and maybe I do too. But at the end of the day, I can sit here and stand and look at people in the mirror, or a parent when they come say, Coach, why should my kid come play for you? It's because that kid will be treated like my own, and I'll love them unconditionally, with nothing for it back. And, I think I got guys that would go to bat for me any day and tell people, yeah, Coach practices what he preaches. He'll literally give you what you need to succeed. And, at the end of the day, I teach in an inner city school district here in Wichita, and some of our kids need a shot. And maybe by getting around me, maybe by getting around my wife, maybe we can show them that there is a better way for them. Maybe there is possibility for them to go do whatever they want to, because, you know, I've been able to travel the world. I've been able to have experiences that I didn't get to when I was in school. And, you know, it's something that, you know, someone had to show me once that I could do it. And, you know, that's where I'm at. So, you know, for us, you know, we're going to keep changing state titles. We're not going to make excuses. One year, we're going to knock down the door, maybe consecutive years. I don't know, but we're going to keep chasing it. But at the end of the day, I know what my importance here, and I know my role in education, and that is helping others and giving others.
That's awesome. Hey, Coach,
awesome, Coach.
we're going to take a break for a minute if we can, if you don't mind. We're going to break for a minute.
Can you come back with another segment, Coach?
Can you come back and do another segment with us, Coach, for a little bit?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Yep,
okay.
I'm good.
What we'll have you do is we'll have you call. I'm going to send you a text here in a couple minutes when to call back. We have to let our camera cool down right now. We'll let our camera cool down, and I'll text you here in a few and have you call back for another 10, 15 minutes if you're good with that.
Cool. Sounds good, guys.
Okay, Coach. Thank you, Coach. Coach, you know, we were talking about earlier. I want to get back. I want to get into a few more different things here now. I want to get into a little bit about Breece and his journey to the NFL. I want to talk to you a little bit about that because, like I said, I know you played such a huge role in developing and helping him in high school and helping his mom and stuff when they kind of started trying to find an agent and kind of doing all that kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about Breece when he was there. I know you said he started his junior year. How did all that go? How easy, how difficult was it when you started doing that? I mean, I know there's a lot to it. There's a lot of layers there, but tell us a little bit about Breece Hall's journey to the Jets.
Yeah, Breece is a typical, I would say, Wichita kid where they all think that they want to be basketball players. And, Breece, his older sister, Naria, is, his best friend, and, they're very close. And Rhonda, she's such a beautiful human being. She's just an amazing woman. And, that's Breece's mom. And so I had the privilege of having Naria in high school before Breece, and she was a track athlete for me and played basketball for our basketball team. And, so I got to know the family a little bit through that. And, I had a coach on my staff that was down at the middle school at Wilbur, or feeder middle school. I was talking about Naria's brother, Breece, and, he's a good athlete, good basketball player. And, Breece had made a name for himself, in little leagues. Being a high school coach, you kind of hear the rumblings of who's going to be good. But to be honest with you, I didn't hear any rumblings about Breece. That wasn't a big name that was getting thrown out there. So, Breece came to us as a freshman. Was one of those typical kids who, he truly thought he was going to go play basketball. That's what kids in Wichita, they just have a thing for basketball. And, it became freshman year goes on, he plays freshman football. We don't bring him up to JV or nothing. And, if Breece was on here, we'd kid, because I'll be the first to tell you, I thought Breece was extremely lazy as a freshman. And I didn't think he maximized his potential. And, going into his sophomore year, the talent was there. He had a backfield mate by the name of Roy Johnson. Roy was another gifted athlete. And those two were really good, but they also had a huge chip on their shoulder, and they knew that they were very athletic. And, I would say a lot of Breece's ass chewings came because I never thought he was giving great effort. I thought he was being lazy all the time. And, we go through the season, there's 3 senior backs on our team. And, at that time, if I have 3 senior backs, I'm going to roll with the guys that I had. One of them was a spectacular running back for me in Jaleel Rounds. And, there was no need to bring up 2 sophomores. I had a mentor that always told me that the more sophomores you play, you can expect 1 loss for each sophomore that you're playing. And so, looking at that, you kind of think about it. But, in my experience now, he's not very far off. I'm glad that I haven't lost for every sophomore or freshman that we started, because we wouldn't have had the success we've had. But, it came to the point where he just wasn't doing the little things. The talent was there. I remember sitting there just ripping his butt I didn't think he was going very hard. But the also funny thing, one of my assistants says, you know, Coach, we chew on Breece a lot, but no one ever catches him. So maybe is it that easy? You know, he just one of the big knocks. Fast forwarding, one of his big knacks in college, I know in the NFL was like, well, what's his overall game speed? He doesn't pull away from people. You know, he has that just natural, gifted smoothness about him when he's in field, where he does not look like he's running that fast. But, you know, a lot of times in high school and college, he was not getting caught. And so, you know, we had a season where, you know, I don't think the culture was good. I think kids started, you know, the season before, I think we were 11-1 or 10-1. We had a great season. And this senior class was very talented. And we had about 7 season-ending injuries in the summer, you know, just some freaks, some broken legs, stuff like that. And so, you know, we really had a dismal season, a really season that really kind of defined of where we're at right now. We started a lot of sophomores that year, but Breece and Roy weren't 2 of them that started, and come to find out they were 2 of our best athletes we had. But at the time, it wasn't a need for them to play. And, you know, last game of the year, I just said, you know what, let's start looking for next year. You know, we're going up against one of the best teams in the state of Kansas. And I go, you know what, let's give them every shot we got. If we got a shot, let's go out freaking around a blaze of glory. And, you know, we start Breece, and third play of the game, Breece runs for an 86-yard touchdown. And my coaches are looking at me, and I'm going, oh, my, what the? You know, you're like, where in the hell is that been? And so, you know, it really started from there. That was a team we literally got. It's the first time I ever done this in my career. I just was so frustrated with how the season went. On the bus, I literally stand up and I say, listen, anybody that's going to come back on this football team, show up at 6:30 Monday to work. We're not freaking resting. We're going right to work. If you want to, you know, everybody's going to check in your pads. You're literally going to hand coaches your helmet as you get off the bus into the locker room. Check your shit in now. I'm done. That next week, we had a sit-down meeting. Breece was getting ready for basketball, of course. And I just had, at that time, I just looked at Breece and said, listen, do you know why you didn't play? And, you know, he hummed around. At the end of the day, I said, you don't even know how good you could be. You could be one of the best backs to come out of Wichita. And, you know, for people that don't know history of Wichita running backs, I mean, you know, his stepdad was a guy that played for the Chiefs. And, you know, Barry Sanders